I used to believe that when someone passes away, the worst part is the moment you hear the news, that single sentence that changes everything. The doctor did everything they could. I'm sorry. But I was wrong. The worst part didn't come that day. It didn't come at the hospital. It didn't even come at the funeral. It came afterward, when the house was quiet, the guests were gone, and my family showed me who they really were. My mother was the kind of person everyone leaned on. She remembered birthdays without reminders. She kept receipts from 10 years ago. She noticed when someone was upset, even if they smiled. She was the glue, the buffer, the peacekeeper. And when she got sick, she never complained, not once. Even in her last days, she worried more about us than herself. The day she passed, I remember staring at the wall, unable to move. I wasn't crying. I wasn't screaming. I was just empty. My phone kept buzzing with messages from relatives, neighbors, people I hadn't heard from in years. Everyone suddenly had something to say about how special she was. And they weren't wrong. She was special. The funeral came and went in a blur. I remember standing next to her casket, watching people cry, listening to stories I had heard 100 times. People hugged me tightly and whispered, "If you need anything, we're here." I believed them. That was my first mistake. The very next day, something shifted. The house felt different, not just quieter, but tense, like the walls were listening, like something unspoken was floating in the air. Family members who never visited suddenly started showing up unannounced. They sat in her favorite chair. They opened cabinets. They asked questions that felt rushed. What happens to the house now? Did she leave anything written? Who's handling her accounts? I told myself they were just being practical, that grief makes people act strange. I kept making excuses for them because that's what my mother would have done. But then came the laughter. 3 nights after the funeral, I walked into the kitchen and heard laughter, real laughter, not nervous, not forced, genuine. I froze in the doorway, unsure if I was allowed to feel offended or confused. My mother had been gone for barely 72 hours, and they were already joking, arguing about food, scrolling through their phones. I went back to my room and cried quietly so no one would hear. That night, I realized something terrifying. I was grieving alone. Over the next week, the behavior escalated. Conversations stopped when I entered the room. Doors were closed that were never closed before. Papers appeared on the dining table and disappeared just as quickly. I noticed drawers in my mother's room moved. Not emptied, just moved. That was the moment my grief turned into suspicion. One evening, I overheard my name being mentioned again. I wasn't trying to listen. I just happened to walk past the hallway. My heart started pounding as I heard whispers about keeping things simple and not complicating matters. Then someone said, "She doesn't need to know everything." I stood there, frozen, my hand gripping the wall. Know what? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every strange moment in my head, every look, every pause, every unfinished sentence. Around 2 a.m., I got out of bed and walked into my mother's room. The room still felt like her. Her scarf was on the chair. Her perfume lingered in the air. I sat on the floor and cried harder than I had since the hospital. That's when I noticed something I had never seen before. A small wooden drawer inside her dresser, locked. My mother never locked anything. My hands trembled as I searched for a key. It took me nearly an hour before I found it, taped inside an old book she used to read every night. When the drawer finally opened, my breath caught. Inside were documents, letters, folders carefully labeled in her handwriting, and one envelope with my name on it. I opened it slowly, like it might disappear if I rushed. The letter started simply, "My dear child, if you are reading this, It means I am no longer there to explain things myself. I couldn't breathe. She wrote about things she had never spoken of: family tensions, old arguments, financial decisions, promises she made and promises she refused to make. She wrote about how people change when fear and money enter the room. She wrote about how she stayed silent to keep peace, but prepared quietly. Then came the line that broke me. "I know they will surprise you. Please don't let it hurt you the way it hurt me." She knew it. She had seen it coming. The letter explained that she had made arrangements to protect me, legally, emotionally, intentionally. She had left instructions not just about assets, about boundaries, about trust, about who should and shouldn't be involved. Suddenly, everything made sense. The strange behavior, the whispers, the urgency. They weren't just mourning. They were afraid of what she left behind. The next morning, I didn't confront anyone. I didn't argue. I simply said, calmly, "I found Mom's letter." The room went silent. No one asked what it said. They already knew. From that day on, things changed. Some family members stopped visiting. Others suddenly became overly kind, overly interested in how I was doing. Relationships shifted overnight. Masks fell. And while the loss of my mother still hurt more than anything I've ever experienced, something else grew inside me. Strength, clarity, peace. Because even in death, my mother was still protecting me, still guiding me, still speaking through preparation instead of words. Grief doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like revelation. Sometimes it shows you truths you were never meant to see until the person holding everything together is gone. And if you're watching this and going through something similar, I want you to know this: trust your instincts, pay attention to silence, and never underestimate the quiet strength of someone who loved you enough to prepare for the worst, even after they're gone.